Abraham of Kratia was a monk in Syria and Palestine. He became a monk at his native place, Emesa, but the community was soon after dispersed by nomad raiders. Abraham fled to Constantinople, and when only 26 was made abbot of Kratia in Bithynia. 10 years later, he went away secretly to Palestine in search of a quieter life, but he was made to go back to his monastery only to be made bishop of Kratia soon after. About 525, he again retired to Palestine and lived in religious contemplation there for the rest of his life. Saint Euphemia was a martyr at Chalcedon in around the year 307. There are many references to Saint Euphemia by ancient writers, and churches were dedicated in her honor in many places, including Chalcedon, where the Council of Chalcedon was held in 451. She seems to have been a maiden martyr there, probably during Diocletian's persecution. Her external acts consisted chiefly of a catalogue of the tortures which she miraculously survived until she was thrown to wild beasts. St. Bridget's cross is simple and does not feature any of the knot-like Celtic patterns we are used to. The woven square centerpiece of the cross features 4 arms that extend outwards in a simple crisscross pattern. Traditionally made from rushes, a bog plant with hollow cylindrical stems, St. Bridget's cross is often made using straw or reeds if rushes cannot be found. Each arm is then tied with straw, rushes, or string to give this symbol its stoic and stable look that cannot be ignored. Once blessed by a Catholic priest, St. Bridget's cross symbolizes protection, particularly from fire, evil spirits, and hunger. This is why they are hung around the home. They are used to protect the home from these devastating evils. The actual physicality of St. Bridget's cross symbolizes the very motions you make when you bless yourself with the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Like traditional Christian crosses, Bridget's cross symbolizes a person's faith in God. The Golden Legend is the kernel of information we have in regards to St. Barbara. Her date of birth and death are unknown. Her father, Dioscorus, shut her up inside of a tower to discourage the attentions of numerous suitors, for it is told that her beauty was unsurpassed. On discovering that she had become a Christian, Dioscorus was made to kill her, but she was miraculously transported out of his reach. He then denounced her to the authorities, who subjected her to torture. She refused to renounce her faith, whereupon her father was ordered himself to put her to death. This he did, and straightway was struck down by lightning and reduced to ashes. Because of her father's fate, she was invoked against danger from lightning, and by extension of this idea, she later became the patron saint of gunners and miners. Her special emblem is a tower. The Japanese martyrs at Nagasaki from around 1597 to 1862. Of the numerous Christian martyrs in Japan, the canonization of 26 has been completed, of whom 6 were European Franciscan missionaries led by the Spanish St. Peter Baptist. Among the others were a Japanese Jesuit priest, St. Paul Miki, and a Korean layman, St. Leo Karasuma. The remainder were Japanese laymen, of whom 3 were young boys. They were killed simultaneously by a sort of crucifixion, being raised on crosses and then stabbed with spears. The persecution had been touched off by the irresponsible and boastful talk of a Spanish sea captain. The shogun Hideyoshi had already been provoked to fury by the success of the Christian missionaries, and the talk of this imprudent sea captain drove him over the edge. Saint Bavo the Penitent lived in Brabant around 653. Bavo was a wealthy landowner who made a good marriage and was the father of a daughter, but he led a very disordered life. Shortly after the death of his wife, he was determined to mend his ways. He gave away his possessions to the poor and put himself under the direction of Saint Amand, who he accompanied for a time on his missionary journeys in France and Flanders. On one occasion, Bavo met a man whom he had years before sold into serfdom. In reparation, he made the man lead him by a chain to the town lockup. He was eventually given permission to live as a hermit in the wood near Abbot Flaubert's monastery of Ghent, and so passed the last years of his life. Bavo was buried at the neighboring monastery, afterwards called by his name Saint Pavon. Martyr and saint Lucian of Antioch was born at Samosata and died in Nicomedia around the year 312. This celebrated martyr, a priest of Antioch, was head of the theological school there, and himself revised the text of the Greek version of the Old Testament, and that of the four Gospels. Being at Nicomedia when Diocletian's persecution began, he was imprisoned there for 9 years. He was twice brought up for examination, when he defended himself ably and refused to renounce Christ. He was either starved to death or more probably killed by the sword. He was buried in Drepanum nearby. Later on, it was said that he had been drowned in the sea and that his body had been brought to land by a dolphin. Bishop and martyr Simeon Barasaba died in around 341 at Ctesiphon. The persecution of Christians in Persia under King Shapur II was one of extreme violence and cruelty. The good bishop was accused of treasonable correspondence with the Christian Roman Emperor Constantine II. He was ordered to conform to the Persian religion, Zoroastrianism. He protested his loyalty, but he refused to comply to worship any god but Christ. The sun, he said, went into mourning when its creator died on the cross. So on a Good Friday, St. Simeon and a large number of others were put to death. Sometime later, his sister, St. Ferbutha, a dedicated virgin, was charged with witchcraft. She, with her sister and another woman, was sawn asunder. Thousands of Christians perished, and many fled abroad during the persecution.